It's my favourite part of the show. It's Talking Pints, and I'm joined by hotelier Sir Rocco Forte. Rocco, welcome.
Good evening.
To Talking Pints.
Yeah.
I had to stop.
I haven't got a pint.
Well, you got a glass of wine, and I had to stop you in the break from dipping in early, didn't I?
Indeed. But this time of the evening, I prefer a glass of wine.
That's fine. Rocco, your family, your father came here from Italy. You've been an amazingly successful family. You've been honoured, knighted in this country. You've received the Order of Merit in Italy, so you kind of, honoured in both countries, which is pretty unusual. Now, I have to ask you, the final of the European Football Championships, England versus Italy, did you have any split loyalties there? Or were you a winner either way?
Exactly. That's what I said. When people asked me who I was going to back, I said the best team.
Oh, well, there's a slightly split loyalties there.
Never usually, because Norman Tebbit had the cricket.
But that's what I was hinting at, yes.
Yes, I know. And so it was very nice. I said, thank God Italy don't play cricket.
Well, I was there. It was agony watching England lose on penalties, but then we always lose on penalties, so it wasn't a great surprise. I guess all the years, that you've been involved in business, and you've seen some ups and downs, you've seen recessions and property price collapses and great times and all the rest of it. But I guess nothing like the pandemic, where your income was sort of just wiped out overnight. I know you've been very critical of the way the government handled much of this, although you had COVID yourself, didn't you?
Yes, right at the beginning, actually. So I got it over with, which was quite a nice position to be in, actually.
But you had it for some time, didn't you?
Well, I had 2 weeks. It was a really nasty flu in me, but I never had any breathing problems or had to go to hospital or anything like that. But luckily, I was sort of quite fit, and so I think that probably helped.
I mean, government, did they have any option but to lock down to begin with?
Well, it's interesting that if you look at the United States, where some states locked down and others didn't, you look at Sweden, which didn't lock down, the states in the United States had similar outcomes, and Sweden actually had a better outcome than any other country in Europe. And the reality of lockdown is all it does is postpone the virus. It doesn't deal with it. It doesn't do away with it altogether, unless, of course, you have vaccines on the way, which then it halts the spread for a while and until the vaccines effectively catch up.
Yeah.
And both times we locked down in this country, infections were falling before the lockdown. And I think that my criticism is the government didn't think about the economy at all. They only thought about the pandemic. They published figures in a way to scare and terrifying people. In fact, it was sort of government terrorism. And it's not only in the UK, it happened across the whole of Europe. And we're seeing the aftermath of it now, that if you see polls that are people still are in favour of lockdown. A lot of people are still afraid.
I know. I mean, I have to say those adverts the government put out, they did frighten people hugely. Do you think your industry, whether it's hotels or nightclubs or the tourism industry as a whole, do you think you're represented properly in government, understood in government, or is it perhaps time government took a different approach to this?
Well, not understood at all, and there's not really much interest in our industry because it's so widespread.
Yeah.
The pockets of labour are very small. You don't have the dramatic effect of a factory opening with 5,000 jobs, but the reality is that 10% of the workforce in this country are employed in the tourism industry. So it's hugely important to the country. We were treated effectively, along with entertainment and other industries of that kind, worse than anybody else. We were the last to be allowed to reopen when there was no sign of any infections being caught in hotels and restaurants. Most of them have been caught in hospitals and care homes, in fact.
Well, I'm afraid that is true.
Yeah.
So what happens with you? Do you lobby the Department of Culture, Media and Sport? Is that where you have to go? Is there anybody assigned to tourism?
Well, there is a sort of minister who has a sort of, I think, quintuple portfolio, Nigel Huddleston, who looks after the industry. But the whole department is called Department of Digital Culture, Digital Media and Sports. Tourism isn't even mentioned. It's the most important industry of the lot.
So we've got 10% of people working in tourism and no direct ministerial representation of any kind at all.
In Italy, funny enough, tourism is even more important than it is in this country, Draghi appointed a Minister of Tourism and created a Department of Tourism when he first came to power. So there's a minister who has full responsibility for the industry as a whole, and that hadn't happened in Italy for a very long time.
So we need a Minister for Tourism.
I think so, and we have a very good representative body, very well led, and they've continually lobbied government over this period, but I don't think they've been listened to very much.
Interesting. Now, lorry driver shortages, staff shortages everywhere. Are you suffering from those problems?
Yes, but funny enough, we're suffering from staff shortages all over Europe.
I know.
We have the same thing in Germany. We have the same thing in Italy. It's probably slightly worse here. I think there's an element until furlough finishes. You won't see the true nature of the problem, because I think there's a sort of psychological thing that's happened with furlough. People have been sitting at home, not having to work, earning some money, and they say, well, this is a very nice way
Great
of living.
life, the sun shines, drink beer in the garden.
They start talking about the work-life balance. And when they have to go out again and earn a living, maybe things will change. It'll take a few weeks, but I think we'll see what the true situation is. I think that I was a supporter of Brexit.
I know.
and very keen on it, because I see the effects of the European Union on my businesses in continental Europe. But I mean, you just don't change from one minute to the next overnight. In terms of there's usually a transition period before you shut down the doors, and I don't think that's happened, because the rules on entry for Europeans didn't become apparent until quite late in the day. So people haven't had time to make up for the lack of European personnel. And I think there's a case, particularly for young people who come here, partly study and develop their skills for a year or two, and improve their English, who then go back to their country. To be allowed in.
And of course, 30, 40 years ago, they came from South Africa, they came from Canada, they came from New Zealand, they came from Australia. And then we made it very difficult for them, and they all came from Europe. But look, I've got no problem with a flexible work permit scheme where people come to work for a fixed period of time, as opposed to the automatic right to settle. And if we get that balance right, then that would be a good thing. Although I suspect, as you say, it won't be that easy, because there are labour shortages almost everywhere. You backed Brexit, you were very prominently. You've been a Eurosceptic for a very, very long time.
Yes, indeed. But I mean, the whole point of Brexit is not Brexit itself, it's what we did with it.
Oh, what we do with it, yeah.
And what we were supposed to do was make this most attractive country in the world to invest in and do business in, and really get the economy moving and enterprise moving in a way which then allowed us to be more generous with the welfare state. This hasn't happened at all. In fact, effectively the opposite has happened. Taxes have increased. There's more bureaucracy rather than less.
Well, Rocco, I spent the best part of my adult life fighting this battle, and we were
We're very grateful to you. Those of us are on the same view. Yes.
It was a pretty lonely...
Without you, it wouldn't have happened, actually.
Well, thank you. It was a very lonely path for a number of years. But when it came to Brexit, I couldn't deliver it. I wasn't in government. But it's been down to Boris Johnson. And I know that you backed Boris in 2019. You put some money into the campaign. You even threw a big celebratory party for Boris, and
I didn't say. I gave a celebratory party for the central office staff.
Okay,
slightly different.
Okay, well, good for you, because they're the ones that get ignored normally. So good for you. But we can't talk about the lack of opportunities that have been created by Brexit, which I do broadly agree with you on. I think there are some good things happening. I think I think, American investment is coming to the UK, not France, Germany and Italy. So they're seeing, even though we're not getting it quite right, they're seeing us as being a better bet. I think, a trade deal with Australia, it may not be the biggest deal in the world, but it at least shows the way forward.
Yes, indeed.
If we get things right.
Trans-Pacific Partnership, if that can happen as well.
It's all up to us. It's all up to. I mean, I never pretended that Brexit would make us wealthy and successful, but it would just put us back in charge of our own destiny. But how is Boris doing?
Well, I don't think very well at the moment. I don't see a clear sense of direction, and really a conservative approach to the economy. It seems to be an alternative Labour Party at the moment. High levels of government expenditure. And
this is not
high levels of tax.
Rocco, that's nonsense.
And so on.
That's nonsense. It's a Green Party. It's not a Labour Party.
Well, it's
much more radical than Labour.
It's a bit of both. More radical.
Well, of nationalising.
I look at it more in economic terms. But I mean, I agree. This helter-skelter rush for greenery, and without thinking of the side effects. And the very people who voted Conservative are going to suffer most from this, because the fuel price, the cost of living is going to go up significantly, and and they're not going to like it very much.
So, Boris Johnson has got a very engaging, entertaining, amusing personality and style. I've been saying for some months that I see him as a cheerleader far more than I see him as a leader. Do you think people like you were slightly hoodwinked by him? Because is he really a Conservative at all himself?
Well, I mean, if you read all the articles that he wrote, they were mostly very, very conservative. He was also a libertarian. This whole lockdown
so
thing
we believe, yeah.
Was actually, I think he resisted as much as he could, although in the end he succumbed. He is a vote. He has been a vote winner. He helped, with him, it helped the momentum for Brexit, and also he won a huge majority. But I mean, if you're a cheerleader, if you're a front man, you make sure you have a good set of people around you who support you and who help you to develop your policies and ideas. I mean, it must be a very lonely job being Prime Minister unless you have strong people around you who you can trust. And I don't think he has those at the moment. And I don't know what the reason for that is, whether it's his fault or whether it's the fault of people around him.
So you're a bit disappointed?
Yes, I am at the moment.
Well, I tell you what, there's only one thing for it. We'll finish the drinks after the show, and maybe that'll cheer us up. But you're not the first person to sit in that seat and feel a bit disappointed with the way Brexit's going, with the way that Boris is doing. But thank you for all you do for tourism in this country, and thank you for coming on Talking Pints. And if you're listening there in Downing Street, I don't normally like to see an expansion of government, but I do think, given the size of the tourism industry, I'm going to campaign on what Rocco's proposed here. I think there should be a Minister for Tourism. It makes sense, it's a key industry, and it needs to happen. That was Rocco Forte on Talking Pints.